I think that, yes, Deepa is found a way to record this, so there should be a recording. All right, I'm going to see if I can get everybody to join us in here so we can kick off. Hey everybody, if you can please join us in this lecture hall where all the chairs are, then you'll be able to hear our presentation. And we'll be kicking off here in just a few seconds. Oh yeah, look at that, double clicking to a chair. Deborah's finding things out that for us here. That's nice, you don't have to use your arrows to go around all over the place. Yeah, feel free to check out the space afterwards. We have some game areas out in the courtyard where you can play competitive Tetris and even a fake bar. All right, let me share my screen. Let's get going. All right, can you all see that? All right, if you all wouldn't mind muting, please. We're working on I think we're off an hour on our reserving the space, so we're still waiting to get managed abilities. I don't think I can mute y'all, so if you wouldn't mind muting yourself, I'd appreciate it. All right, welcome to Angular KC. We're so happy to have you all here today. We're happy to have so many people from all over the place. That is fantastic. I see people from Toronto and Colombia and Brazil and Washington, D.C. And I guess California, so that's really, really awesome. This is an Angular KC space, so when you sign up for the meetup, you saw our code of conducts. We do adhere to the code of conducts in here as well. In a nutshell, basically treat everybody with kindness and respect, and everybody is welcome. Thank you very much to Adaptive Solutions Group. They're sponsoring this space for us today. We truly appreciate your support, and we couldn't have our meetings without it. Let me introduce Landon Bush, who is from Adaptive and wants to say just a couple of words.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Just wanted to jump on here real quick and introduce myself. I'm, happy to have you guys all jump on today. But, like she said, my name is Landon Bush. I'm with Adaptive Solutions Group here, and just wanted to let you guys know if any of you are currently and open in the market for new opportunities, or if you know anybody else that might be in the market for opportunities, please feel free to reach out. I will put my email address in the chat. But if you'd like to have a further conversation, please do email me. Other than that, I'll let you guys get to it, and thanks again for having me.
So you can follow us on social media, and we love to have you. We do have a Slack channel. You're welcome to join and chat about Angular. You can follow us on GitHub, Meetup, and Twitter at AngularKC. So with that, let me stop sharing and talk about our wonderful speaker today. We're so excited to learn about Firebase. Let's see. We're going to learn today, talk is getting started with Angular and Firebase. And Deepa has over a decade of experience as a software test professional. She enjoys building full-stack applications and is also passionate about cloud technologies. She currently works at Adobe as a quality engineer developer. So please give a virtual round of applause for Deepa.
Thank you, Elisa. Thanks for having me here, and thank you so much, everybody who showed up here today. Can I go ahead and share the screen?
You should be able to, yep. Yeah. So, and everybody, once again, if you wouldn't mind muting, please.
It's so weird that I'm going to be talking to a screen. So hi, everybody. Today, let's learn how to get started with Angular and Firebase. And as Elisa has already given about an intro about me, these are the ways that you could connect with me online. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, or my Twitter handle would be on the top of every slide. So today we'll get started off with a traditional web architecture, and we'll move into introduction to Firebase. And we'll see what are the steps to get started with Firebase, and we'll wrap it up with a couple of demo and a conclusion. So before I start off, I am assuming that most of you are familiar with Angular application. Creating an Angular application, you should be familiar with components, services, promises, observables. I'm not going to go deep dive into all those things. I'm just going to be focusing more on how do you hook up with Firebase. So here is a traditional web architecture. On the front end, we have Angular, which talks to a backend, which could be written in Node or in .NET. And you would have databases, either a MongoDB or a NoSQL. So any Angular application would need a backend. And you can write it by yourself, or you can use services like Firebase. So what is Firebase? Firebase is a mobile and a web development platform. It is also a set of tools inside of Google ecosystem. Here, I wanted to introduce you to a little bit of a cloud concept here, but bear with me. I'm trying to make you understand where exactly Firebase stands. On the right, on the blue circle, you have PaaS, which is Platform as Service. That's where Google Platform sits in. And on the left, you have Serverless Framework, which is an extension of Google Cloud Platform, which has two services. One is FAS, which is Function as Service. And on the intersection of these circle is BAS, which is Backend as Service. This is where we'll be focusing today for Firebase. So having said this, I know Firebase is a backend as service, and you can manage your backend. You can scale up with traffic. You can keep your services up and running. So under the hood, if you're creating a Firebase project, you are creating a Google Cloud project. So now let's see what are the platforms that it supports. I already told about mobile, web, and Unity. Unity is for gaming applications. So today there are four main features of Firebase: building your application, releasing and monitoring. You can collect analytics for your application, and you can engage users based on your analytics. For the sake of this talk, I would be focusing more on the build feature. So with that said, when you have an Angular application, if you have a Firebase, it makes it a 2-tier instead of a 3-tier. Now, your Angular developer can focus more on the front end and not having to learn all the set of technologies and spend time on the back end stuff. So Firebase would be a good replacement. This is very good for prototyping and rapid app development. So before we move on to the build features, I just wanted to mention that authentication and databases I would be covering in a bit during the demo. So now let's move on to Cloud Functions here. So Cloud Function, as I showed you this image earlier, so you see this orange circle where it says FAS. That's where Cloud Functions come into place. When I say Cloud Functions for Firebase, It's an extension. It's a serverless framework where you can add your code and deploy based on event-driven programming. For example, if you want to store any files here with cloud storage for Firebase, so if the user goes ahead and uploads an image, there's an event triggered by the HTTPS request, right? So these events can be handled by cloud functions. And apart from it, it also interacts with authentication, cloud file storage, which is the database, which I'll be covering in a bit. You can also host your application in Firebase. And there is also machine learning API that is available in data, where you can see the user behavior, and based on that, you can improvise your application. So now coming to authentication. Firebase gives you a bunch of sign-in providers along with social sign-in providers. Apart from it, there's email and password, phone, and anonymous. Anonymous sign-ins are mainly used for gaming, where the user doesn't have to go log in to play games. So now, I just want to give you an example with Firebase authentication. Like any other service, you would have an authentication service. You should import Firebase auth. And Firebase comes with, this is an example for signing up with email and password. It comes with 3 functions already. You can create a user with the email and password. You can sign in and sign out. These are the predefined Firebase APIs that comes along with email password authentication. So now moving on to databases. There are 2 types of databases available with Firebase. One is real-time database. The other one is Firestore database. When I say real-time database, this is a huge JSON. It is useful for simple and small data sets. So it's very easy to sort and retrieve data. However, there are 2 things that you need to understand with real-time database. You should avoid nesting data, which I'll show you in a moment why. And then you should, when you're starting to develop an app, you're prototyping, or you're just a startup, make sure that you also keep your database not in sync. Here, if you enable it, you're going to be hitting up with a huge bill. So now moving on to Cloud File Storage database. Cloud File Storage database, it's for complex data, where you can organize to scale your data based on collections and sub-collections. Here, I've given an example. A teacher in a school who handles different grades would have a student document under each and every sub-collection. So with that, what is the benefit of this? You can have nested data here, and then you can also filter and sort based on a specific property in a single query. So that's one of the benefits with Firestore. So you need to know which database that you want to use for your application. You can either choose Firestore, Cloud Firestore, or you could use real-time database, but you need to weigh the pros and cons. Real-time database, though it's easy to store as a JSON file, when your application grows, it's going to be, the data is going to be huge. So at times it might be hard for retrieving data earlier. So now let's see what are the steps to get started with Firebase. How do you create a project in Firebase, and how do you register? I'm going to show you a short video that I recorded and I have it in YouTube. So you go to, first off, you go to console.firebase.google.com. I'm going to say Firebase console because it's hard for me to read out the entire thing. Where you go ahead and you sign in with Google and you add a project. Once you add a project, it says a couple of steps. Make sure that you disable Google Analytics if you're doing prototyping or if you're trying to work in the dev environment. And once this takes a couple of seconds, and once you're done, it asks you to register your application. So you can choose web for Angular. And when you register your application, you would get a Firebase API key. Firebase gives you a Firebase object, which can be used inside of your Angular application. So you can also access this by going to the project settings as well. Now, moving back here, we saw how we can add a project and then register, and make sure that when you create a project with Firebase, you need to create two separate things. If you want a production one, you need to separately create a project and add register an app, and vice versa. So if you have different environments that you wanted to put in, you have to create different projects and register your application based on that. So once you have the API key, before you, how do you make sure that Angular and Firebase talk to each other? How do they connect? You connect with this library, Angular Fire, which handles all the authentication, which gives you an access to authentication databases and all the build features that I talked earlier. So once you install this library, you can also stick the Firebase object that you got inside of environment file. Note that when you create an Angular project, you would have two environment files. One is for cloud, one is for like I used it for dev environment. So I'll show you in a moment when I do the demo. And once you have that, you need to initialize Firebase in the app module by calling this function. Now, Firebase also comes with a set of CLIs. You can install using Firebase, install this using this library Firebase tools, and you can, whatever I did on the GUI part, you can do it from the CLI itself. You log in, and then when you say Firebase in it, it gives you an option as, hey, what do you want to do? You want to host, or you want to create a database, or there are a list of options that you could use. So I chose here as hosting. Like any other Angular project, you would build your application, and how you deploy it is using Firebase Deploy. Now let me show you a code snippet and a demo. So let's first start with the demo. Here I have a couple of applications that I built up. This is for authentication. If I go ahead, this is for email address and password. If I go ahead and sign up a user, make sure that you add all the verifications from Angular side. Here I have not added it, which is not a good thing, but then you should be ideally doing that. See, boom, it is, when you sign in with, you can also add, there is also functions for verification for email address and stuff like that. And you can also use, there is a Firebase UI for sign-in methods, which there's a repo for specifically inside of Firebase that you can use. They do give you a template kind of a thing in Firebase documentation that you could use instead of writing your own code as well. So now let me move on to the database. I'm going to be showing you a real-time database demo. Here is a set of records that I have. And as you can see, the list of records are here. I'm going to be going ahead and adding a record. So if I go ahead, when it's here, and I want to also show why you should not have nested data. I'm removing this record. It's gone from here, and I'm going to be adding a nested data. So note that when I do this, although real-time database can handle this, you should be able to do that tuning in Angular application too. So it is Firebase mentions that you could avoid doing this with real-time data. If you want to use nested data, you should use Cloud Firestore. And I also want to show you that you can set up rules. Here I have not set up any rules for for accessing this database. Ideally, you would set up your rules here. And also, I wanted to show you, this is how inside of app module, you would initialize your app, and these are the environments that I showed earlier. I've put my Firebase object here. And this is where ideally you should do it when you are trying to deploy a production application. And moving on to the slide. So let's see what are the pricing. Most of the services are free to start. Firebase initially started off with mobile, so most of the services were free to start at the beginning. But then there is a limitation to it. As you hit the limit, you have to pay as you go. And depending on the services that you have in your project, the prices would vary. But I can give you a ballpark of what it is. And in this case with Angular, it's daily active users. Like daily active visits to your page. So in the Firebase documentation, Google had mentioned about installs, mobile installs, but I'm assuming that for any Angular application, it would be for daily visits or active users. So if you have about 1 million users, you would be hitting up with about $3,000. This is an example, but it could vary depending on what are the services that you choose. And what would be the market share for Firebase? For the web alone, it's not for Angular, but as a whole, web as a whole is about anywhere about 25 to 30% for web, and Android has the most market share for Firebase. So, in conclusion, Firebase is used for prototyping and rapid development. So any Angular developer can start off focusing on the front end and leave the back end to Firebase. So as your Angular app grows, you have a choice to add a mobile client with Firebase. And of course, it's backed by Google. You have good documentation support from Google, and also it is your responsibility to add all the front end verifications with Angular. So with that said, here are my resources, and thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to talk. Now would be the right time to ask questions.
Hey, I had a question about, does it support transactions?